Now I realise there must be Barrett Browning fans out there who consider this to be one of the great love poems of the English canon, and if it was satire, I'd agree. Unfortunately, it's not, so let me count the ways I think this poem is arrant nonsense. It puzzles me how readers are happy to nod knowingly at the declarations of ardent young love made by Romeo and Juliet, recognising their verse as hyperbolic twaddle, and yet at the same time take these lines seriously. Welcome to the phenomenon known as poetic cognitive dissonance. Still, let's start with the positives. Can Miss Barrett Browning handle the Petrarchan sonnet form? Of course she can. Sonnet 43 has 14 lines, 10 syllables per line. It's written in iambic rhythm. It's got an octave with an ABBA ABBA rhyme scheme, followed by a sestet with a CDE CDE rhyme scheme and a volta or twist in perspective at the end. The first lines introduce the theme. In this case, the speaker poses a question. How do I love thee? And then uses the rest of the poem to list or let me count the ways. So far, so good. Sounds a little bit like Orsino in 12th. If music be the food of love, play on. Let me count the ways I love thee. What comes across is more of an infatuation or an obsession with the thought of being in love rather than the sentiment itself. The first response to the question is, I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach. It's not a particularly interesting line of poetry, just a list of the physical measurements of three-dimensional space. Perhaps the best thing that can be said about it is the repetition of the voiceless dental fricative, that's the depth and breadth to you and me, extends the syllable, making the line feel longer. I think the speaker is trying to express how difficult it is to squeeze all of their love into 10 syllables. I also assume the enjambment or run on to the next line is there for the same reason. Line 3 transcends from the physical to the metaphysical. Depths and breadths my soul can reach. It's a passable line if we take it to mean the speaker's emotions, the dimensions the speaker's emotions can access. However, the next clause escalates the idea to utter twaddle, when feeling out of sight for the ends of being and ideal grace. The ends of being? Can you imagine that? I would have thought the God referenced at the end of this poem was eternal, or being without end. So it's hard to grasp what the image is driving at. In fact, it's so abstract as to be meaningless. Furthermore, it's coupled with another huge concept. Ideal grace, whatever that might be. Great poets try to find images, metaphors or symbols to bring abstract ideas to life, but Browning just dumps them into a poem as a list. They're so big and so undeveloped as to be meaningless. Not for 1 second do I believe the speaker feels the ends of being or gets anywhere near it for that matter. It sounds inauthentic, as if someone has read about profound love, desperately wants to feel profound love, but actually hasn't got a clue what they are talking about. The speaker tries to take her foot off the rhetorical gas in the second quatrain, but not by much. I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need. Now that need might be to breathe, to blink, to drink a cup of tea. Who knows? It's not specified but left to the reader's imagination. But the hyperbole is still there. Most quiet need. The speaker is adamant there is nothing regular about this love. The line ends by sun and candlelight, which one assumes represents the needs of the day and the needs of the night. Now, we could have done with hearing a little bit more about them. The octave ends with 2 more mega claims. I love thee freely as men strive for right. The speaker suggests not only is it a free choice to love, but an ethical choice, the right thing to do, the noble decision, almost self-sacrificial. I know one shouldn't confuse the speaker with the poet, but this line reminds me of the brilliant Mrs. Merton question. Exactly, what could have possibly attracted you to this famous literary figure? It doesn't sound so ethical or self-sacrificing to me. The last line in the octave, I love thee purely as men turn from praise, elevates the speaker's motive to pompous self-righteousness. As an autobiographical aside, Browning didn't turn that far from praise. She was busy publishing poetry about her love. The final 6 lines of a Petrarchan sonnet offer a resolution or a shift in perspective from the octet, and we can see how Browning does that here by conferring her lost loves and passions onto her new love. A psychoanalyst would call this transference, the process whereby emotions are passed or displaced from one person to another. The speaker now loves their new sweetheart with the passions or griefs of the old griefs and the innocence of childhood faith. Here, the contrasting emotions are used to convey the enormity of the love. The religious imagery continues into the next line. The love I seem to lose with my lost saints is now transferred onto the new lover. Were I that person, I'd be concerned about the weird intensity of attraction coming my way. The poem finishes with the breath smiles tears of all my life. Presumably, breath symbolises the essence of life, and smiles and tears represent the extreme ends of emotion, of the emotional spectrum of her love. The final twist, wait for it. After all that, I shall but love thee better after death. It could have come straight from Lysander's or any other caricatured lover's mouth in Midsummer Night's Dream, and should be taken with the same degree of seriousness. To me, this is a fantasist's list of how being in love should feel. I guess I don't think it's a great love song, but if you enjoy it, more power to you. That was Sonnet 43 by Elizabeth Barrett Browning, and this is Think Think Inc. thanking you.